is Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can always email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Rufus Lee Brown. Now, we're going to be discussing his amazing book, You Bet Not Cry, Childhood Abuse, A True Story. Now, it's available for purchase through Amazon as well as barnesandnoble.com. And people, listen, You Bet Not Cry is going to be the main anchor for today's interview, okay? That's really going to be the one that we focus on. But make sure you head back on over to his Amazon and Barnes & Noble pages frequently, because that's not all that Rufus has in store, okay? There is another 6 titles available for purchase. So you're going to want to head on over there and just get lost in the journeys that he's created. And I will take this opportunity and point out that Rufus was brought to our network, People of Distinction, by some of the best publishers in the business, CITI of Books. So if you or anyone you know have a book that they'd like moved, well, give yourself the best gift you could possibly give. Contact CITI of Books and have their wonderful team move it for you. You can find out more information on them through citiofbooks.com. And remember, when you search, CITI is CITI of Books. And listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have Rufus here on the line. Now, right there in the title, well, really in the subtitle, you know what we're discussing today, okay? Childhood abuse. Now, this is a memoir, so we're going to be talking specifically from Rufus's mother's experience and the childhood abuse that she had to unfortunately withstand. And listen, you may not be able to relate to every aspect of this book, but this is something that I think is profound and something that I think really needs to be talked about. I know, given my background and given the community in which I have come from, raising children comes along with some abuse, right? And the extent of it, because of course there is a spectrum, depending on the severity of the abuse, it has lasting detrimental effects on the child that is being abused. And I think that this is a wonderful discussion to have because, listen, people, whether you like to talk about it or not, this is something that affects a lot of people. This is something that a vast majority of the population can relate to. And I think by having the discussions, right, by tackling the issue head on, we can learn to dismantle some of those generational traumas, because people, that's what it is. These are generational habits that were passed down. And for one reason or another, whether it be lack of parental guidance or whatever the case may be, it's something that really needs to be altered. It's something that really needs to be changed. And I'm very excited that we have Rufus here on the line, because this is something that, listen, if you're a parent out there or a soon-to-be one, this is a conversation you're going to want to have with your partner and how you go about disciplining your child. And at the end of the day, Rufus is the expert, right? Again, it's his mother's story that we're going to be talking about. He's written the book. He, by all means, is the expert pertaining to it. So let's bring him here with us. Rufus, first and foremost, man, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you very much for being a guest with us today. How you doing?
Thank you, Mr. Cole. I'm doing fine, thank you.
Wonderful. Man, listen, we're very much looking forward to this. I think what you embarked upon here is profound. And as I mentioned in my opening, I think it's a discussion that we need to stop shying away from. It's a discussion that we just need to hit head on. And I think by you taking that initiative in writing this book, it's going to help formulate that bridge to really have a productive conversation. So thank you very much for that. And listen, I know we have a lot of information to cover pertaining to the book, but before we go there, let's start off by learning a little bit more about your background. Rufus, tell us a little bit more about yourself, please.
Okay, I'm the third child of 8 children. that my mother, Miss Queenie Mae Brooks-Jones Brown Monroe Myers, had. And like I said, I'm the third child. I was born in Archer, Florida. It's like 16 miles from Gainesville, Florida, in Alachua County. When I was born, there was a population of like 500 people living in Archer. It's only a little small country town. Well, my mother, she was actually forced to marry my father. By her new parents, she was adopted. So I guess you can call it a shotgun wedding. She had no choice. So she was forced to marry my father, and that's why that's what happened in my life. But some historical fact that I need to mention, the Rosewood Massacre that occurred in 1923, January the 1st. John Singleton, he directed the Rosewood movie. Well, it was about that massacre that occurred. My aunt, Mahulda Gussie Brown Carrier, was a school teacher living in Rosewood at the time. And her husband, Aaron Carrier, was the man that was accused of allegedly assaulting Fannie Lou Taylor, and which we all know all of that was a lie. So it wasn't true, but anyway, he was nearly beaten to death by this lynch mob that came through Rosewood. However, he was rescued by a sheriff, Robert Walker, and he was taken to Gainesville and put in protective custody. My aunt Mahulda was able to escape on the train with other Rosewood survivors, and they made it out of Rosewood, but it was a catastrophe for the African Americans that lived in that town.
Wow. My goodness. Listen, people, what a way to start an interview. Rufus, thank you very much for articulating that, man. Listen, the anchor for today is all about your book, You Bet Not Cry. Please tell us your mother's story.
Okay. I would like to first point out the little girl on the front of the book is she's 11 now, 11-year-old granddaughter. She loved animals just as my mother loved animals. She was on a riding trip when she took this picture feeding a horse. But her name is Alicia Millie Herrera Brady, and she's my heart. But anyway, my mother, at age 7, in the year 1937, I call her Little Queenie. Little Queenie was given up for adoption by her grandmother, Julia Whitfield. This couple, J.C. Butterfly Jones, was a postal worker, and his wife, Rosa E. Jones, was a former school teacher. Both were affluent people. They owned 1,000 acres of land in Alachua County, and everything, their farm was paid off. He was a self-employed farmer. So, you would think my mother would have had a wonderful life in such an environment. Anyway, to the contrary, they left Jacksonville where they picked Little Queenie up, and they traveled to Alachua County. And the first night that she arrived at her new home, she was mistreated. There was 2 empty bedrooms, and Little Queenie did not get in any one of those bedrooms. She slept on an old army cot for more than a year that was set up near the dining room. Little Queenie was abused constantly. On one occasion, she dropped a dish and broke it when she was 7 years old, and while she was down on the floor cleaning the broken glass, her new mother kicked her. As my mother told me, she kicked her. She said, "Papa, she kicked me so hard because I broke her dish." And then she told her, "Gal, you bet not cry." That's the title of the book. So that's the first time that my mom heard those words. And since after that, like every occasion, she was abused mentally, physically. Those same identical words came forth from her new mother and her new father's, "Gal, you bet not cry." And it was a terrible life for my mom. It's really a sad book because she was only a kid and she did not deserve this.
Right.
Julia Whitfield gave little Queenie up for adoption because these people promised her that she would get an education, she would go to college, blah, blah. It was all a lie. Little Queenie was adopted to be a little slave girl for this couple.
You know, Rufus, let's talk about inspiration for a second. The story, of course, is heartbreaking, but through that, I can recognize the benefit of articulating such a heartbreaking story. But I want to hear it from you, Rufus, rather than assuming. Talk to us about the inspiration behind creating this narrative.
Well, basically, my mother was the inspiration because I began writing children's books about my mother. I'm thinking, my mother had she told me she had a pet horse named Bandit. She got Bandit when she was 9 years old. So that was her joy. And I began writing children's books about my mother, believing that she had a fun time growing up. To the contrary, she informed me, she called me Papa. She said, "Papa, I enjoyed your little books about me being me and my horse Bandit, but actually your mother did not have a fun life coming up." So that's when she began to tell me all the atrocities that she had to undergo with this couple. I call them seeds of Satan because anyone treat a kid in such a manner, a 7-year-old kid, are evil. They were not good people. And they lied to Julia Whitfield when they told her that little Queenie would receive education. She didn't start school until she was 9 years old.
Oh, my goodness.
And my mother always wanted to be a doctor. That was her lifelong dream, to be a doctor. And they snatched that from her. It was a lie. It was misleading. She lived in a house of pain. So I felt very comfortable writing my mother's story because she was my inspiration, because she was always telling us kids that we should love one another, that we should love children, we should never mistreat children. And children are very important to God, because even Jesus said, "Let the children come unto me." So children are very important, and they never should be abused in any kind of despicable, deadly, or deplorable manner.
Absolutely. People, again, we're here on the line with Rufus Lee Brown. We're discussing his amazing book, You Bet Not Cry, Childhood Abuse, A True Story. It's available for purchase through Amazon as well as barnesandnoble.com, but make sure to check into the other 6 books that he's released as well that are all available for purchase through those pages. Rufus, next question before we start to switch gears here. Who would you say is your intended audience with this book? And then a subpart to that, what is the main message that you hope that they receive from it?
Well, the intended audience is really, there's nothing of no harsh words in the book. There's no profanity. The book can be read by 12, 13-year-old children. It's really for the general public. I wish the book could be made a part of the school curriculum, because it tells a true life story of a little kid being mistreated and being unjustly damaged by a couple that claimed that they would love her, but they never did.
Listen, people, as I've mentioned before, I'm going to mention it again. There are 6 other books that Rufus has written, okay? Now, the titles, quickly so I can point them out. We have a trilogy, so they all have the same main title, but then different subtitles. So we have Blue Shades, Crystal Blue Eyes, Witch Adventure. Blue Shades, Indigo Blue Moon, Avenging Witch. And then Blue Shades, Violet is Rarest, 3rd Generation Shockling Witch. Now, those are the 3 in the trilogy, but he's also got some other books I'm going to quickly mention for you as well. And then we have Poems, the Mixed Compilations 2, Designed Lyrics for Music and Reader Pleasure, A to Z. I Will Never Forget, Amidst the Thorns and Thistles. And then Poems with chorus lines designed with music in mind. Now listen, Rufus, you've written all these fantastic books and nobody knows them better than you. So I'm going to leave it up to you on whatever one you'd like to go into. Dealer's choice here, but please tell us about one of your other titles.
Okay, I would like to mention the Blue Shade trilogy series. I call it my super fiction, super spectacular, unique, phenomenal, epic, and rarest. Blue Shade is about a very powerful witch. When she was born on a full red moon, and when she became 12 years old, she inherited all her enchanted powers, spells, curses, divination, ability to shapeshift. She received all these when she turned 12 years old. And not only is Blue Shade the witch, but her grandmother is a witch, and her niece, Violet, is a very powerful witch. So we have a combination of 3 very powerful witches that was the greatest witches of all time. The book contains unique magical events, supernatural spectacles. It's of epic proportion. It's an amazing book trilogy, and I recommend that everyone get the book. It was written for the big stream, and that's why I wrote the book. It was came to me as a dream, and I completed the book project in 10 months.
There is something for everyone. Okay, You Bet Not Cry was the main anchor for today's interview. So if you're looking for an educational narrative, right? Because I'm going to try to look past the negativity of the book and see the silver lining in it. I mean, it absolutely is a tearjerker. Okay, let's not shy away from that. And, you're going to need some tissues next to you. But the education, the wisdom that's going to be able to receive from it is second to none. But let's say you don't want something so deep. Let's say you want something that you could just get lost in, a fictional narrative to just take you away from the day-to-day pressures. Well, he's got the trilogy there for you with Blue Shades. And then, if you're a poet or someone that just loves to get lost in the poetry books, he has that for you also. I'm telling you, these are books that need to be on everybody's shelf. Okay, they're fantastic resources. They're wonderful journeys to get lost in. They're wonderful journeys to learn from. Head on over there today and pick up your copies. And let's focus on developing a brighter tomorrow. Because I truly believe it. When we close out, when we think about You Bet Not Cry, people, I'm telling you, childhood abuse is something that is all too common. But at the end of the day, when we think about the abuse, can we just stop and ask ourselves, what is the child gaining from this? I know anger may be your first response, and I know hitting the child may be something that you deem as an appropriate recourse. But if you take a second and really stop and analyze that situation, what is the child gaining from it? How is this beneficial? And I think you might have a different outlook if you really analyze it from that perspective. It starts with this book. It starts with the conversations that are going to ensue through reading it. Head on over to Amazon and Barnes & Noble, pick up your copies today. And of course, you have Rufus Lee Brown to thank for it. Rufus, this has been an absolute pleasure, man. Such an honor. Thank you once again for being a guest on People of Distinction.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Thank you.